There seems to be a lot of talk going around that there's a discussion of socialism in the US for the first time on a significant level. Like Americans are really discussing the possibilities of socialism and putting it through. Well, I hate to break your bubble, but no, it actually isn't. Now, there's a lot of people on the left and a lot of liberals that are talking about this. Things like Truth Dig, the Huffington Post, the usual the usual suspects in this case, saying that Americans are now really discussing the possibilities of socialism in the U.S. Now, the reason I say this is false, and that, as every other time I've said it's not happening, and I'm still right. Let me explain. What's being discussed isn't socialism. It's just Western European welfare state. And that is not socialism, because there's no actual element of class war. Now, they want to put some restrictions on the capitalist class. They want to bring them under control. They want to publicly admonish them for the things that they're doing that are damaging the planet and people. But they're not going to get rid of them. This is not socialism that's being discussed. They're only talking about having universal health care, or even in the possibility in the future of having a universal education system where everybody, the government will pay for people's education. This is very, very far from a revolution. I mean, we're talking something that's not even close to what even Venezuela is, and Venezuela is still a capitalist country. It's social democratic at best. But people are magnifying this way out of proportion. Now, I can understand a lot of the liberal media and even a lot of the left media thinking this is talking about socialism, because in general, Americans don't know what socialism is. They think it's, anything the government does. But that's not what we're facing here. Who here, Cortez or Bernie Sanders, or even, for God knows for some reason, Hillary Clinton, have ever talked about abolishing capitalism? None of them have talked about that. All of them have talked about the excesses, the crimes that capitalism has committed, but have not committed themselves to overthrowing it. They want to put nice, soft kid gloves on it. Look at Cortez completely changing her position on Israel from what was an occupier colonial state to something that has excesses and should be criticized. She went from wanting to abolish ICE and saying, well, I'm not saying abolish. We can get rid of ICE, but we're not going to get rid of, stopping illegal immigration. So essentially, she's going back on what she said, because now she's part of the mainstream political apparatus. The same thing happened with Kashama Sawan. I said the same thing there, too. And then people just responded by calling me racist, because, yes, of course, if you disagree with someone, it means you're racist. If I point out how you can't change the system from within, which is something leftists should already know by now, it automatically makes you racist. So, to people, look at what's going on. We're talking about social democratic reforms, not overthrowing capitalism. I really hate to break it to you, and I mean that. I hate to be the one, because I hate to repeat myself on things that should be really obvious. It's not happening. This is not socialism. This is not some kind of idea of redefining socialism to be something that you can come to peacefully. Not redefining socialism to be, it's when the government does good things for people or reorientates the economy to serve people. That's an incredibly vague term that could cover just about anything, including social democracy, which seems to be the context in which it is actually being used. It is very far from the truth of there being some kind of revolution. Because if you think revolution comes through a vote, you're wrong. And in fact, you're stuck in pre-Second International thinking. I mean, this really should be obvious. I'm not telling you anything you shouldn't already know. So it's really time to start rejecting this phony socialist speak, and argue for real revolution and push for real revolution. I mean, I'm a third worldist, and I'm looking at all of this saying it's not going to happen. because it never happens. But you keep proving us right. When you say people are looking for socialism now, they're discussing the real possibilities of it, you're horribly confused, because they're not talking about socialism. They're talking about social democracy, which is actually long overdue for the United States as it is. So you gotta get over this thinking everything is socialism, or like the slightest tiny little thing means that the revolution is coming. Because we have heard this over and over again. I mean, just in the almost 10 years that I've been doing this YouTube channel, we've seen, Kashama Sawant get elected. Oh, it's happening. Bernie Sanders is running for the leadership of the Democratic Party. It's happening. Occupy Wall Street is here. It's happening. Again, and Obama running for president, which oh God, that is so cringy, thinking that he was going to be a socialist. You keep falling for it. And this is the point that we as third worldists keep making, that you're not really interested in revolution. You're interested in reform. You don't want a whole new system. You want what you have now with some more benefits, and getting rid of some of the things that are negatively impacting the economy and the distribution of wealth between the rich and the poor in the United States. There is no intention whatsoever to equalize wealth across the entire world, which is what communism would do. So, I mean, again, I told you so, but here we are doing the same thing all over again. I mean, if you're a first worldist and you really believe that revolution is possible in the first world, then you really got to start dragging people away from this phony socialism and start pushing them towards real revolution. But frankly, in my opinion, given the material conditions, given the historical patterns of revolutions taking place, it's not going to happen. It's going to take something very, very significant in order for things to get to that point where there is some kind of spontaneous class consciousness. And unfortunately, that seems like it's going to be a massive global crisis that's going to knock the United States out of the position as a first world country down to a third world country in order for that to happen. But let's hope that's not the case. I wish it could be easier. Let's hope that it can be done before something like that even happens, or before the world even comes to an end from global warming. But I mean, come on, try to keep your heads on here straight. Try to keep your heads on straight here, because this rhetoric that's being thrown around right now is certainly not socialism. It's just social democracy. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.